Welcome into Hand Raise Guys, presented by Comer Heating and Air, Southern Air Conditioning and Heating. I'm Neal McCready, flying solo for a little while here. Hopefully Chase Parham will be able to join at some point in the next little bit. He's tied up with some things right now, so hopefully he'll be able to join. If not, I'll be here with you for a little while. Take your call, 662-259-8563 on the Campbell Clinic Hotline. This show brought to you each and every Thursday night by our friends at Comer Heating and Air, Southern Air Conditioning and Heating. Different names, same great people, products, and services. If you live in Oxford, Batesville, Tupelo, or the surrounding area, get in touch with our friends at Comer at 662-801-1777. If you live in Memphis, Hernando, South Haven, Olive Branch, Horn Lake, those areas, get in touch with our friends at Southern, 662-429-4429. Eric and all the people at Comer and Southern, they do great work. They've been with us for a long time. They will take great care of you. Also, it's what sets them apart from most heating and air companies. It's that their level of customer service is frankly just superior. They're terrific at what they do, and we appreciate them. We'll take calls on the Campbell Clinic Hotline, from fractures and sports injuries to complex spine and limb conditions. The pediatric orthopedic physicians at Campbell Clinic in Oxford are the only specialized pediatric orthopedic team in North Mississippi, providing expert care for growing bodies. Visit campbellclinicoxford.com to schedule an appointment, or call 901-759-3111. I'm in the Clark Ford studios. Clark Ford's in Amory, Mississippi. 662-257-1900 is the number. Call it. Ask for my good friend Corey Clark. I think Corey will be calling in tonight, joining a little bit. Saw him at the Pavilion last night for the Ole Miss Texas A&M game. Visited with him, so hopefully he'll call in. Anyway, you can call him, 662-257-1900. Tell him what Ford product you are looking for, and he'll send you a quote within 15 minutes in business hours. It's right to the bottom line. No hassle, no haggle. You get your quote. The rest is up to you. You can shop that quote around. You can do what I've done, what I recommend that you do, and let's hop into a Clark Ford today. Again, 662-257-1900. I will load this in podcast form sometime tonight, in time for tomorrow morning as our Friday Blue Sky Live. Don't forget, stop at Blue Sky all over the state of Mississippi. I know that last night they were giving $1 to the Grove Collective for every person in attendance for the Texas A&M Ole Miss men's basketball game. I think it was 10,008 people, maybe 10,009, one or the other. It was the second largest crowd in Pavilion history. Blue Sky Oxford is donating $1 to the Grove Collective for every person in attendance at the Ole Miss women's basketball game Sunday at the Pavilion, 2:00 against the Texas Longhorns. So you can go out and check out the Rebels and the Horns, and also contribute to the Grove Collective just by attending the game. Don't forget, Blue Sky locations all over Mississippi. Great place to fill up your vehicle and also get some snacks. They got great beer selection, things of that nature. It's always clean, always a great place to stop. We appreciate the Craddock's and all the people at Blue Sky for being with us for a decade plus here at MPW Digital. So with you guys, I'll take your questions on the call. I'll talk. That was quick. I'll talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. A lot of stuff going on this week in sports, obviously in the world. It's been a busy week, so we can talk about kind of whatever you guys feel like. The show is up to you. And speaking of, caller, who do we have?
Hey, Neal, it's Hayden.
Hey, Hayden, what's up, man?
Can you hear me pretty good?
Yeah, I hear you great.
Hey, so I got just a couple minutes. I want to ask you a quick question. I'm about to pick my son up from daycare, but wanted your opinion on this. Last night I was watching actually watching a reaction video to the Trump inauguration speech, and my wife was kind of casually listening over my shoulder, and she's in the loop, but maybe not as much as I should make her be, and I think she's still kind of in the mindset of the kind of off-the-cuff, crazy, mean tweet Trump. And I had to correct her. Like, no, maybe his first term, I thought he was more 60-40 crazy, and now I think he's more in that like 90-10 number. I think he's much more measured and to the point. When did that switch flip, and like why do you think that did?
I mean, obviously, I know a couple of people who are close to him. One in particular, who I know has had his ear over the last 4 years. I don't think that's, even though sometimes in that first term, I don't know that he listened to some of those people when they said, "Hey, you really have got to chill with some of the Twitter stuff."
Yeah.
But they did tell him, and you know, I'm starting to think that the best thing that ever happened to him was these last 4 years, because he is different so far. I mean, look, we're 3 days in, but he's gotten a lot done in 3 days. I mean, there's a lot has happened in 3 days that he said we would do on the campaign trail, and he's doing it. But yeah, he's not doing. I mean, he's putting out. I don't do True Socials. I see it only when it shows up on X. I mean, he says some stuff, but it's nowhere near to as. Again, we're not even a week in. It's nowhere near as much as what drove people, self included, crazy. I'm kind of like your wife. I mean, I liked the first Trump administration, except the tweets became. I don't know why. I don't know why the tweets bothered me. I tweet. It drives people crazy. I know. Not to the extent that he does, but he's more measured. Yeah, I think he's different. I mean, I think you have to consider what happened just 6 months ago. I mean, that would change my life. That would probably change your life. That would probably change your wife's outlook. If you're standing someplace and a bullet that's intended for your brain hits your ear, and you go down and there's a hail of bullets over you, and you stand up and you've got blood streaking down your face, and you realize that someone just tried to kill you.
Yeah.
And for some reason you were spared. That I would think that changes your perspective. And he has looked different to me this time around. I don't know.
I totally agree.
Yeah, I don't know what that is, but yeah, he looks different. I mean, and then the other thing, and it's a long-winded answer, but why not? We're here for a little while. I honestly believe that in 2016, in November of 2016, I think he was shocked to win, and I don't think he was prepared to win. And this time, I think it's pretty obvious that he expected to win and was prepared to win.
I agree. All right. Well, that was a quick call, but I only had a couple minutes. I just wanted your take on that.
How old's your kid?
He is 9 months old.
9 months. Well, it goes fast, my man. Enjoy it. Enjoy daycare and carpool lines and all of that stuff, because take it from someone who knows 17 years from now, you'll look back and you'll be glad you had those times, because it goes quick.
Yes, sir. I look forward to calling in more, hopefully. I'm always in the chat, but just never called.
Thanks, Hayden. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
That was Hayden. Appreciate hearing from him here on this Thursday evening. Again, I know some people are signing in looking to see about Chase. He hopefully will be here soon. He had something come up late this afternoon that was a little out of his control. And so hopefully he'll be here. But if not, I'm here with you. Flown solo before. We can fly solo again. The number is up on the screen, so you can call. I'll talk a little SEC basketball while we're doing this. Ole Miss, of course, loses in heartbreaking fashion to Texas A&M last night, 63-62 at the Pavilion. Led the entire game, gave up the lead with 16 seconds left on the three-pointer. Capped a 9-0 Texas A&M run to end the game. Ole Miss led by 8. Not 9-0. I guess it was 10-2 or 11-2. Texas A&M run to end the game. Ole Miss led by 8 with 2 minutes to go. Couldn't hold on. So the Rebels fall to 4-2 in the SEC. There's really no time in this league to sit around and worry about it. You got to move on. And Ole Miss plays at Missouri on Saturday at 5 p.m. in a I mean, we do this deal where we say every game's important. Every game is important. I don't know that I've seen people call it a must-win game. I don't know that I buy that. I don't think it's a must-win game. The goal is to make the tournament. That's goal number one, make the tournament. I think Ole Miss has to get to 8 SEC wins to make the tournament. They've got 4 now. They've got 12 more shots to get 4. So would a win be better than a loss? Yes, obviously. Would it be nice for them if they had won one of these last 2 games that were decided basically on last shots, Mississippi State and Texas A&M? Of course. But that's not really how it works. And so they've got Missouri, then they come home and they play Texas next Wednesday. I said 6 o'clock earlier today. It's an 8 o'clock tip. I don't know why my phone suddenly converted to Pacific time at some point over the last 24 hours, because at one point today I pulled up the Missouri game and it said 3 o'clock Saturday, and I was like, oh, that's great. And then it was 5 o'clock. So the Texas game on Wednesday is at 8 at the Pavilion. Hey, caller, who do we have?
Hey, Neal, this is Tupelo.
What's up, Tupelo?
Hey, I think I asked this in a mailbag question one time, but I just wanted to, I guess, see if you've had a chance to study it. But I think I've asked one time about if you've ever studied the Lincoln assassination. And I was just wondering if you've ever done any deep research into his last days on Earth.
I have read a lot about it. I've read more about the aftermath of the assassination and all the things that happened in the days and weeks and years following than I have in the days immediately leading up to it. Fill me in.
So it's kind of long, but I know you're flying solo. But anyway, so well, first I'll say this. So have you ever been to Ford's Theater?
I have, yes.
Okay, so there used to be next to Ford's Theater like a bar and small little pub next to it. They typically would promote it, I guess, at the Ford's Theater. There's probably a business partnership there or whatever. But anyway, so John Wilkes Booth, since he was an actor, he knew the ins and outs of this theater pretty well. But he was in the bar drinking, and this guy was sitting next to him and said, you know, you're John Wilkes Booth. And as I've studied it, I've seen that a couple of times, but I didn't think it was real until I was reading multiple books telling the same story. So I kind of got a feeling that this conversation happened.
And Ford, I will say this real quick, not to interrupt your story, but to add to it.
Sure.
One of the things that I think gets lost in the whole story of John Wilkes Booth is it's almost impossible, right, for us 160 some odd years later to put who he was in perspective in 1865 society.
Sure.
He was one of the more famous actors in the country. I mean, he was some people have said he would be like a modern day Tom Cruise, which is like impossible to really put into perspective because we have internet now and television, and you know, it was a much smaller world and smaller country in 1865 than it is today. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. The closest thing I guess I compare it to is he was a slightly less popular version. It was almost like Elvis if Elvis was only maintained to like a smaller community, because by that time Elvis was able to travel around the world and Booth couldn't. He wasn't that popular, but everyone knew him. Well, in the conversation, this guy tells John Wilkes Booth, hey, the president loves you and he thinks you're a good actor. And Booth responds in some way saying, oh yeah, I've read that somewhere. Well, this guy responds and says, no, he's told me. And Booth in response says, how do you know the president? And this man says, well, I'm his security guard. I'm supposed to be on post right now, but I'm just down here to get a drink. So Booth knew that Lincoln was by himself. And an interesting part of that whole story too was he invited Grant to be with him, but Grant went home for a family matter. So Grant could have been there as well. had this family issue not come up. But to backtrack a little bit, the days leading up to Lincoln's assassination, a lot of people I think think that happened months and years after the Civil War had ended, and it
Weeks.
didn't. It happened. Yeah, it happened just days after.
Yeah.
So in the story, Booth obviously shot him. The original plan was to kidnap the president. So if you've ever studied, or if anyone listening ever studied the story, Booth runs to Dr. Mudd, who was a doctor that helped out with different Confederate leaders or whatever. And Mudd is shocked that the president had been shot. He thought that the president was going to be kidnapped. So Booth changed the plan like minutes before the actual assassination happened. And so not only did it change the course of history, but it changed the course of the whole plan that Booth had set up with these other people, because they had no idea that the president had been shot until either probably the next day or later that week.
And so
it's just interesting.
The giant plan was to kill the vice president and also kill the Secretary of State, right? Or kidnap them?
Yeah, the plan was to kill them all, and they tried to. I think they had a shot-on attempt at killing the secretary, but he didn't die or something like that. I could be wrong.
Yeah, they wounded him. They wounded him, but he survived.
Yeah, I could be wrong on that aspect. But what I find fascinating is when I started studying, okay, why did Booth want to kidnap Lincoln instead of shoot him? Because obviously the assassination caused larger waves than what kidnapping would do. And as I began to study it deeper, there was actually a portion of the Civil War still happening in Tennessee where both sides did not know yet that the Civil War had ended. And so Booth had an idea that if he would have kidnapped the president, it would re-spark the flame, or rekindle the dying flame that was the Civil War. So in my mind, I assume Booth thought, if I can get the president, kidnap him, it will cause so much uproar that we'll have another Civil War and another chance at it. Obviously, I don't think that would have gone over too well, but I think that's what Booth thought originally.
If that's true, then why did he shoot him?
See, I think he was drunk. And I think he was out of his mind because
I mean, he shot him point blank in the back of the head. I mean, it was a mortal wound, and he knew it. He knew it would be a mortal wound.
Yeah, well, obviously, he changed the plan to shoot him, but supposedly there was preparation in place for days, like right as the Civil War ended. So not long. So, I mean, he had a couple of weeks or maybe a few days to plan, and then something in his mind switched within the hour to shoot him. And my personal opinion is that he wasn't in his right mind, but I don't really know. The jumping onto the stage from the balcony is really interesting to me, because he jumps from the stage and screams out a quote that he gives in a play that if anyone was there in any of his plays that he was acting in would have known what he was saying. So it would be like a famous one-line statement that an actor gives. He gave that when he jumps onto the stage, and everyone there, goes into chaos, and he obviously breaks his leg and runs to Dr. Mudd. But it's an interesting story. About a year ago, just because of the election upcoming, I wanted to study a president, and Lincoln obviously is a phenomenal leader. So I started studying it, and I just became fascinated with his assassination.
Yeah, because, well, what's interesting about Lincoln is that he went into 1864 believing that he had really no chance at re-election. I mean, he spent that whole year sort of resigned to in his mind the reality that he was going to be defeated, and that was going to be the end of his term. And then he won re-election because the war kind of started to turn in the Union's favor in in 1864. They had some big wins late that fall, and he wins the election. And back then, the inauguration was in March, not January. And Booth was actually at his second inauguration in 1864.
Yeah. So, and after or right as the Civil War was coming to a close, there's a lot of quotes in different books that I've read where he's telling his secretary or he's telling his wife or his family he feels like he's about to get killed. And I don't know if that's because it was such a divisive time in our country and he was the man that was ending the biggest war in our country's history. And so he was just guessing that someone would try to kill him. But I do think he felt so much pressure just on all of it that he did believe that someone was going to kill him. And I can't imagine what that must feel like. I mean, as the president or any leader, that pressure just put on you constantly. But he's an interesting president, and I know that I think when I wrote in the mailbag that it was during football season, but this off season, if you have some time, there's some really good books and sources on his assassination.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'll look into it some more. I've been there. I've wanted to do that. They offer this, like, it's a tour. It takes like most of a day, but you retrace Booth steps after the. I mean, it's kind of a nerd thing, but I'm sort of a nerd, so I would probably enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm excited. We're planning on going to DC in May, so we're big Cardinals fans. And the weekend of Mother's Day, the Cardinals play the Nationals, so we're hoping to make a trip out there that weekend.
It's a cool park. I love that ballpark. It's a neat park.
Yeah. All right. I also have one NBA question, and then I'll hang up.
All right.
And I know that there's a lot of NBA hate, but I love the NBA. I love basketball. So
same.
I don't see a world where, unless an injury happens, that SGA does not win the MVP. I guess Jokic could still win it, but I mean, that game last night, SGA really made some headway in the MVP talks, in my opinion.
So it's go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say was, so it sort of depends, right? And I mean, obviously, I'm biased towards Shea. I watch him every night, and he's having a Jordan-esque year, and that's the comparison. I've been making it for a while, and I've started to hear people do it, and I think there's validity to it. I'm not saying he's going to have the same level of success in his career that Jordan had, but I am saying that there are some real similarities in their games and the way that if you go back and look at kind of Jordan's first MVP year and his first championship season, there are a lot of similarities between the Bulls and Jordan then and the Thunder and SGA now. So that's one side. The other side is that Jokic is probably playing the best basketball of his career. They don't have the wins necessarily to show for it, though they do have a good record. He's pretty much universally accepted as the best player in the world. They don't have the supporting cast around him that SGA has in Oklahoma City. I mean, his second best player right now is Russell Westbrook, who's having a renaissance kind of a season for him late in his career. So it might come down to how much Jokic fatigue there is. Like, are people tired of Nikola Jokic winning the MVP? I mean, Jordan didn't win a couple of times, right, when he was clearly the best player in the league. Barkley won one year. Karl Malone won one year. Jordan was better than those guys, and he was better than those guys that year. But people get tired of voting for the same guy. And
Steve Nash won one over Shaq that year,
yeah,
and there was no business in that.
See, I think SGA should have won it last year.
I did too.
And then so now you get this deal where I kind of think what's going to happen is, even though I think you can make a legitimate case for both guys, I mean, assuming that they stay healthy, there's still half a season left. But assuming they stay healthy, I think SGA is going to end up winning it this year as sort of a cumulative title, which is fine.
Well, I can't think of the last time we've seen a 3-peat MVP winner within, the last.
Yeah, I mean, I would think it goes back to the Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the same standards used to vote on MVP now than it was then, but
I don't even know how you would do it. Like, I don't even know how you evaluate. Like, I heard Jalen Williams, the Thunder Jalen Williams, Santa Clara Jalen Williams, talking about how he thinks there should be 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards. And I was listening to the interview. It was on the old man in the 3. And I agree with him, actually. I mean, there's 2 completely different types of defenders. They're going to give it probably to Victor Wembanyama, who is the best rim protector in the game, best shot blocker in the game. But, they don't really ask Wembanyama to go out and guard pin downs or to go out and switch onto an Anthony Edwards and guard him in the open floor in the same way that they don't ask a Lou Dort to guard the rim. I mean, there are different types of defense. So it does make sense what he's saying. And so in some ways, I mean, you're not going to do 2 MVPs, but in some ways you almost could and probably almost should. Like in the NFL, they have an MVP, then you have Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, which is sort of their way of passing out 3 MVP awards. And
I've wondered if the NBA would ever move to that, or doing an Eastern Conference, Western Conference MVP, and then an MVP of the entire league. But I don't know. I know there's a lot of talk about NBA ratings being down. I think a huge part of it is that they don't know how to market SGA. Even Ja Morant's not marketed. I'm a Grizzlies fan. Even Ja Morant's not marketed in a way that I think could bring some views to the Grizzlies. I mean, it's a weird.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a weird marketing strategy.
The NBA thing is pretty clear, right? Because people do they shoot too many threes. And I'm like, well, college basketball is nothing but threes. I just covered a game last night where the 2 teams combined to take 63 threes in 40 minutes. I mean, do the math. That's more than a 3.5 every minute. I think it's obvious what happened to the NBA. The NBA was brutally obnoxious in 2020 in the bubble. Obnoxious. Yeah. They were horrible. They did all the stupid stuff. They went completely overboard, and the names on the back and the stuff on the court, and they went completely over the top. Let's just be real. They did, and a lot of people turned on it. And so if you don't just really love the game, probably like you and me do, where you just enjoy it, and you can sit down and watch it and ignore that stuff, they turn people off. And so they come up with justifications so they don't have to say that. And for the record, I think that's a perfectly legitimate reason to not like the league anymore. I think it's more than fair. The part I push back on is when people say, well, the NBA, the level of play is not as good as it used to be. It's just not true. It's simply not true. I mean, the level of play is probably better than it's ever been. I mean, like we talk about Jokic and Wembanyama. I mean, Wembanyama's this 7'6" freak who can shoot threes. Ralph Sampson couldn't shoot threes back in the day. This guy stretches the floor. I mean, he's a completely different kind of player, and there's tons of great players, international, American, and otherwise. But the league did itself a tremendous disservice in 2020. And then you're right. Now they have some of these young teams that are really fun to watch that they don't market because their marketing people are so obsessed with marketing LeBron and Steph.
And to me, there's nothing wrong with marketing LeBron and Steph when they're on championship caliber teams. But I mean, what's the peak for the Lakers? The first round? And the Warriors may not even make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean,
and I think if they're not careful, no, yeah. I mean, if they're not careful, they're going to become where the MLB is right now. And I mean, I don't know how you can avoid that unless they just revamp everything. I mean, there's people that still view Ja Morant as the, getting in trouble on Instagram Ja Morant, and that's been 2 years ago. or a year and a half ago now.
The only way
I mean,
John Morant's going to be able to overcome that is to stay out of trouble and to play elite basketball deep into the playoffs.
Yeah, well, I'm a big Grizzlies fan, and he frustrates me so bad. He never plays consistently. It's hard to watch because I know where the Grizzlies are going with this, and I think that they would let Jaren Jackson Jr. walk before John Morant, and I think that's a big mistake.
I do too.
I think they should build the team for the long run around Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. And if John Morant goes to the Clippers or the Magic or wherever and becomes an MVP caliber player, good for him. But I just don't see it. And he's electric, but he's so small, and his game mirrors Russell Westbrook in his Oklahoma City days. But John Morant doesn't have that weight behind him. I mean, he gets hurt so much. I mean, he's on pace to play like 48 games this year. I mean, that's just not enough.
Russell probably doesn't get enough credit for how physically tough he was in the prime of his career.
Well, I saw the comparison the other day, and I'm thinking Russell Westbrook is like 25 pounds bigger than John Morant. I mean, that's different when you're talking about muscle mass. I mean, John Morant's a small guy when it comes to his weight, and he gets hurt so much. I mean, he'll go in the paint and try to dunk on anyone, and it makes me tense up every time he drives in the paint. But anyway, I don't know. I really hope the Grizzlies don't do what I think they're going to do, and that's try to win a championship within the next 2 years. And if it doesn't work, then Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to be a free agent, and he'll be playing for whoever he wants to play for.
Yeah, he'll be able to go anywhere he wants. That's for sure. I think he's tremendous. One of the best defensive players in the league and all of that stuff. I'm curious with Memphis what they do at the trade deadline. I'm curious with a lot of the West teams. Memphis, Houston, OKC, the Clippers. I'm curious to see what some of those teams do here in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Do they make a move to go all in, or do they kind of keep their powder dry in terms of draft capital for the future?
Yeah, and last thing, I don't think the Grizzlies have time to go for the future, because even though the Thunder are significantly better record-wise, I mean, it's not too far out of the reach where they could maybe get into a dogfight in a conference final series. But we really don't want to try to wait 2 more years when there's that guy in San Antonio that's on the rise. I mean, he's got winning rings on his resume, it feels like already, as long as they can put a competent roster around him.
If they add a piece like Cooper Flagg to that, all of a sudden they're off to the races. No, there's it's one of the reasons that you have to always like measure that, like how aggressive are you at deadlines, and how much of your draft capital are you willing to part with to make an all-in move when you don't really know what the next CBA is going to look like. All those things. I mean, those are difficult decisions that keep executives up at night, because you can screw it up and your window closes on you, or you can go all in and have an injury, and next thing you know, you look back and you're like, we shouldn't have done that. That was too aggressive.
Yeah, and I think the Grizzlies and the Thunder probably have 2 of the 3 best front offices in the league. I mean, the Grizzlies draft really, really well. The only thing that they didn't have that the Thunder did have is they didn't have a Paul George to trade to get a bunch of assets back. I mean, that's literally all the difference. I mean, if we had Paul George to trade to the Clippers, we would probably be in the same position that, you guys are in right now. But anyway, yeah, I was just calling in to discuss a few topics. I think it's my first time calling in. I know I'm in the chat a lot, but
it was a good.
Anyway, I'll
appreciate you calling.
Yeah, have a good one.
You too. Appreciate the call. The phone lines are obviously open. We'll talk about anything you guys want to talk about. I was going over schedule for Saturday. It is Mississippi State at South Carolina. That's a noon game on SEC Network. Texas A&M which beat Texas by 20 in College Station. They head to Austin on ESPN2 at 1:30. Kentucky heads to Vanderbilt. Big game there at Memorial on ESPN. That's at 1:30 on ESPN. Georgia coming off of a very similar feeling to the one Ole Miss had on Wednesday. Georgia loses in the final seconds at Arkansas last night. They head to Florida on SEC Network, 2:30 in Gainesville. Ole Miss heads to Missouri. Again, that's on SEC Network at 5 Central, 6 Eastern in Columbia. Arkansas is at home again on Saturday, looking for their second win this week. That's on ESPN2 against Oklahoma. That game is at 7:30 Central is the tip. LSU is at Alabama. That game is on SEC Network. Tennessee is at Auburn on ESPN. Hey, caller, who do we have?
Hey, Neal, it's Austin.
Hey, Austin, what's up, man?
Not much. I hope you're doing all right.
Yeah, I'm doing good. Thanks.
Same here. Quick question. A little NFL question. So, obviously, with the championship games this weekend, it's a two-part question. AFC first, NFC second. First part, how important is this game for, look at the Bills, Josh Allen specifically? Because to me, it kind of feels like the Bills are almost like the Indianapolis Colts with Peyton Manning back in like the 2006 time when they finally beat New England, when New England had been beating them in the playoffs constantly. I feel like this might finally be their year. First off, my first part of the question is, do you think this is Josh Allen's potentially last shot at Mahomes because the Bills seem to keep offloading stuff, or do you think there's like another future for him? And the second part of my question real quick is about the NFC. Do you give Washington any chance of beating Philadelphia this weekend? Go ahead.
Yeah, I give them a chance. I don't give them a great chance just because it's a rookie quarterback and you're going into a hostile environment and Philadelphia's defense is really good. But Philly's offense is kind of beat up. Washington's playing pretty loose, and they got to feel like they're playing with house money, and it's a division rival that they know really well. Yeah, sure, I give them a chance. I mean, I'm a big Jaden Daniels fan. I mean, I think he's terrific. I mean, I've told the story many times. I mean, I had 10 to 15 minutes, basically me, him, and one or two other guys in Nashville, and I was blown away by the guy. Just really impressed with him as a human being, and I'm not surprised that he's had the level of success that he's had so quickly in his NFL career. That team's got really good leadership. It's got really good coaching. Sure, they could pull it off. I mean, I don't think they win, but I think it's close, and I think they'll cover. And if you're within 6 late in the game, yeah, anything can happen.
Good point. And in the AFC, real quick, do you think this is Buffalo's best chance? Do you think this is? Me too. I'm really concerned because obviously they've been slowly over the last couple of years giving pieces away on offense and defense, and obviously they lost Diggs to Houston last year, which was kind of understandable and kind of not at the same time. I question, especially because they're building the new stadium, how devoted they're going to be to getting the resources together to put a team like this again. I'm worried if they don't get it done this year, this might be it for them.
Yeah, I don't know about being it. It does feel like a really big moment for Josh Allen. They've knocked on the door a couple of times. And they've had disappointing playoff losses. They had that loss to Cincinnati in the DeMar Hamlin year, and I mean, the AFC is loaded. Obviously, Kansas City's in it, and Kansas City has dominated. This is their 7th straight AFC title game, which is incredible. It kind of feels like his turn. Like, that's just, I don't know what that, I've had this like weird gut feeling about it all week. Not that I have a lot of gut feelings about NFL teams, but I've just kind of had this feeling all week that it's just sort of Buffalo's turn, that they're going to get it done, that there's a certain passing of the torch that feels imminent on Sunday. But look, I mean, the Chiefs are in everybody's head. They've got everybody hating them, everybody accusing them of getting all the preferential treatment from officials and all of that stuff. And they just win games. And they've kind of done it all year. On the flip side, it's kind of felt like they were playing with fire a lot. And I don't know. Like I said, I have this feeling that this is the season that Buffalo breaks through. Like in a year when earlier in the year you may have thought it wasn't going to happen, right? And this maybe isn't their best team, but like I've heard Peyton Manning say the best teams he played for in Indianapolis didn't make the Super Bowl. Finally, it was some of the teams that maybe weren't the most talented, but they were the most grizzled, the toughest guy. They'd been through the fire together a little bit, and then they broke through and won. So it kind of feels like that for me with Buffalo.
I feel the same way. To me, the whole week I've been thinking back to I think it was 2006 when the Colts won their Super Bowl, and for years Brady and the Patriots just had their number. They would have these great regular seasons. Peyton was always talked about as being this great quarterback but couldn't finish the job against Brady, and it just feels like I'm living history, but history's repeating itself this time with Mahomes and Allen almost to a certain extent. I kind of think this is their time too.
The one thing I do hope is I hope that in the event that Buffalo doesn't win it, I hope we don't do this deal about Josh Allen and we try to lower him down a rung. I mean, he's very clearly one of the 3 best quarterbacks in the NFL.
100%.
Best 4 certainly. We did this with Lamar Jackson a little bit. I didn't think the Ravens lost on Sunday because of Lamar Jackson. You know what I mean? I mean, they lost because they just got beat, and at the end of the day, they had a couple of turnovers and the 2-point conversion. If he catches the ball, and I'm not pinning it on the tight end, but if he catches the ball, that game probably goes to overtime, and then it's anybody's game.
And I'm like you. I like Lamar Jackson in overtime.
Yeah, I don't want to bet against Lamar Jackson and his legs in overtime. I mean, that could have gone. If you put those 2 teams in an overtime game, it could go either way. And it's kind of like that Sunday. If the game in Kansas City goes to overtime, it's anybody's game. I mean, Joe Burrow beat them once there and got to a Super Bowl, and I thought should have beaten them the next year. And, and then Kansas City got to the Super Bowl and won it. Who knows? I mean, it's cliche, and I say it way too much, and I justify it a little bit, but at almost any level, actually winning a championship is really hard. It requires such a level of, you have to be really good. The timing has to work out, and you have to have this degree of luck that just it's not in your control. And so who knows, right? I mean, it's got to all kind of play out just right for you. I mean, you could go back and replay a lot of NFL seasons and you would get a different Super Bowl winner because something different would happen.
Right. So I guess last thing before I hang up, if you had to call it right now, give me your winners on Sunday. Who do you think makes the Super Bowl?
I think Philly wins in a close game, and I think Buffalo wins. If you told me I was off on one, I think I'd say, Washington won. I think Buffalo's going to win.
I hope you're right. Hey, listen, man, I'll let you go.
I do too. I don't know. I have nothing against Patrick Mahomes. I think he's phenomenal, but I think I'm part of the group that has Chiefs fatigue, and I have Mahomes fatigue, and I've got Travis Kelce fatigue. I've got Chiefs fatigue. I'd like to see Buffalo make it. I would be more interested in the Super Bowl if Buffalo's in it than I would be if Kansas City's in it.
They feel an awful lot like the Brady Patriot years, like in the early 2000s, where you just got tired of seeing their logo on screen.
Yeah.
I feel that way about Kansas City.
That was the part where the Giants beat the Patriots those 2 years. Is we were all cheering for. I know a lot of Ole Miss people were cheering for Eli. I get that, but like everybody was just kind of cheering for Cinderella. I mean, it was so good to see like the evil empire knocked off by that point when they finally lost. It was almost like no one can beat them, and then the Giants beat them, and people almost like made the Giants this plucky little underdog. And you go back and look at those Giants teams; they were really talented teams. I mean, those were Strahan and Osi Umeora, and I mean there were dudes on those Giants defenses. Those games should not have been viewed as these monumental upsets, but we were so sick of the Patriots that they kind of got labeled that way.
You're absolutely right. Hey, man, I hope you have a good one. I'm going to keep listening to the show. Have a great weekend, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. Millhouse, I'm asking the girls. Caroline has plans already. I'm asking Campbell just in case. I really appreciate that offer. That's very nice of you. One of Campbell's best friends from Arkansas, her former roommate, sorority sister, she works for OU's athletics department now. And so she's coming to the game with OU, and I think they're getting together, but I don't know. We haven't really talked tickets and stuff. I didn't know whether she was going to the game or not, but I just asked. So thank you. Yeah, the Braves signed Jurickson Purfor. Isn't that how you say his name? Jurickson Purfor, something like that. Former phenom, who's still a very good major leaguer. 3-year, $48 million deal. I saw that earlier. Saw where the Cubs are trying to make a trade or make an acquisition from Houston with Ryan Presley, the Astros' former closer. That's being rumored out there as well. All right, phone lines still open. Haven't heard from Chase. Hopefully, Campbell's asking if I'm busy, if she can call real fast. I'm explaining to her that I am podcasting. I could get her to call into the show. It might be interesting. She probably would not like to do. Hey, who do we have?
Yo, it's Grind.
What's up, Grind? How are you?
Doing good. How about you, man?
Man, I'm good.
I have a question. Is Josh Allen better than Big Ben Roethlisberger? Just, picking back off the last call.
See, I kind of think so. I think he's better. Now, that doesn't mean he'll win more titles, right? Like, I think Roger Staubach was better than Terry Bradshaw back in the day, but Bradshaw won the titles. I mean, I think there's more to like evaluating a player than just championships. Like, I think I've always thought that was kind of horseshit.
But he won't be as glorified as Ben Roethlisberger if he doesn't win a title.
No, if it's the way we are, right? No one ever puts Dan Marino in the same caliber of quarterback with John Elway, even though if you talk to some NFL people who will tell you they think Marino was a better quarterback. I mean, you're splitting hairs, right? Who was a better player, Scottie Pippen or Charles Barkley?
Oh, okay.
I mean,
okay, yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, we're so hung up on titles. Like the whole, I've been doing this thing about SGA, where I think I know what I'm looking at. And I could be wrong. I hate saying it out loud because you just know people are going to blow you up if you end up being wrong. But it's like part of being a sports fan is that you look at things and think, that looks familiar. Like SGA reminds me a lot of Jordan. But
I get what, like, when you say that, man, I get what you're saying. You're talking about how fluid he is on the court and all of that. I understand.
He's starting to score on all three levels. He's getting to the rim. He's emerging as an elite defender. One of the NBA Twitter feeds that I follow the most, it's Matt, I can't think of his name. He goes by Hardwood Paroxysm, something like that. I mean, he was making the case for Shea being Defensive Player of the Year based on analytics, based on numbers. And if you remember when Jordan first broke into the league, nobody talked about Jordan as a defender. And by the end of the year, he was everyone put him on the all NBA defense teams, and they put him defensive player of the year. And even though he played with guys, Ron Harper, Scottie Pippen, who probably were overall better defenders than him, and the Bulls would put him on a weaker guy most of the game so that MJ wouldn't get in foul trouble. And he put up these numbers, and all of a sudden everybody's like, "Oh God, Jordan's one of the greatest defensive players of all time." And it's like, well, it's more complex than that. But the long-term point is, unless Shea wins 4 or 5 titles in Oklahoma City, no one's ever going to really buy in on the whole Jordan comparison. And
well, see, but you know what's so weird though? It feels like we as basketball fans have a little more nuance, even though I get what you're saying when it comes to Charles Barkley, because look, man, the dude that me and you both have, we just look at with disgust now, KD, had he just won one title at Oklahoma City, just one title.
Yeah, we would talk.
I mean, we could talk about KD is the guy that I mean, it's gonna hurt the way I'm gonna have to explain KD to my kids, because of what he could have been and what he ended up being.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree completely.
In my opinion, I put him below Carmelo just because I loved KD so much. He was my favorite player, but when he pulled that move, I had to pull for LeBron. At that moment, he made me go for LeBron because it's like, dude, like met up, like be a man. You know what I mean? It's like, come on, bro.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I live in a house where at the time my 10-year-old son sawed his cardboard head off that day on July the 4th. I'm well aware of the KD situation. I was sort of sadistic at the moment. I was like, "Hey man, you okay?" It wasn't even. It was 9. All of a sudden, he had a. It was back when KD was on the cover of NBA 2K or whatever. And you went to what's the place where you go to the video game place? GameStop. And he went to GameStop and he got the game, and the guy gave him they were getting ready to switch promotions or whatever, and the guy gave him the life-size cardboard Kevin Durant. And it stayed in his room at least a year, maybe 2 seasons. He had a big fat head of Russell Westbrook and a big KD cutout in his room. And
really?
Yeah, Carson loves the Thunder now. His buddies will go, "You're a bandwagoner," and I'm like, "No, you're not. I can help you with that." I got a picture of 8-year-old Carson with Sam Presti in Chicago. So no, he's not a bandwagoner. But my point is when KD left that day, he announced the decision on July the 4th. I'd gone for a run, and when I heard the news, I was like, I better get home. And I got home, and already KD's head had been severed from his body. He was at least in cardboard world, he was dead to Carson.
He was dead. I got you. I understand that. I mean, look, I feel him, man, because I felt, like I said, I felt the same way. That was just beyond, like, it basically, for us young kids in this era that followed the NBA, like the whole way old heads talk about how your generation is just soft and yada yada. I mean, he just put the stamp of approval on it and sent it off. I mean, that is all he did.
Yeah, that's why all the when SGA at Cleveland, when they lost at Cleveland 2 or 3 weeks ago in that really good game. God, it was a great game. The third quarter of that game was phenomenal theater. It was
awesome. Amazing. Yeah, that was a good game.
It's a great game. And they asked somebody, one of the national reporters was there and was doing a story about, the 2 markets not being big markets and stuff like that, and asked SGA about, could you ever see yourself anywhere else? And his answer was no. I couldn't imagine playing anywhere but here. I love it here. And the environment and blah, blah, blah. And I mean, Thunder fans it's kind of like that's what they want to hear. And at the same time, they have like, almost like this nervous tick that kicks in, because, I mean, they lost KD for nothing. I mean, they lost Kevin Durant for nothing.
Yeah, for nothing.
Think about that. They lost one of the all-time great offensive players in the game at the peak of his powers for
I don't
nothing.
think, like, bro, he went to the team he lost. I mean, could you imagine? Let's just say the portal like was back then. If Cam Newton would have never came back against Alabama and then he transferred to Alabama his senior year,
It'd be literally.
dude. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's a great example. That's what it would have been. It's very difficult to put it into proper perspective, and that's you just did it.
Yes.
I mean, it would be. I'm having a hard time coming up with one. I mean, I'm trying to think of a non. Yeah, I can't come up with one right now. It would be Aaron Judge unable to beat the Dodgers and joining the Dodgers.
Dodgers. Yeah.
Yeah. It would be something like that. It was. I mean, and people always talk about how organized and efficient the Thunder organization is, and for them to allow themselves to get to that spot, it had to tell you one thing, right? And I've heard this from people that are pretty close to the Thunder, which is Kevin Durant told them he was staying. Not only did he leave to go to the Warriors after losing Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals in a series they led 3-1.
3-1. Like you can't make this up, man.
Not only that, but he lied to them and told them the whole year he was staying. I mean, they were going to go out and get Victor Oladipo, and they were adding Al Horford. They were bringing in this team of people that he wanted. All the pieces were in place, and then he left. I mean, Sam Presti didn't suddenly become a great GM. He was always one. He built that team around Kevin Durant because he believed Kevin Durant was staying. He believed Kevin Durant was staying because Kevin Durant told him he was staying. That's the worst part of the story that never really gets told. Everything had been done for 4 or 5 years to put them in position to give him the max and all of those things and to give him the pieces that he wanted to win titles. And then he left.
And we don't even give him credit for those rings. It's like he doesn't get.
And he was the best player on those teams. He was better than Steph on those teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't get the credit because Steph and Clay and Draymond, and to a lesser extent, Andre Iguodala, they were the Warriors.
Yes.
Kevin Durant was just he was a mercenary.
I'm gonna transition down to college basketball before I let you go.
Yeah.
Why are college basketball coaches more honest than football coaches? I
don't know. It's great though.
I love watching their press conference. I mean, you had Mick Cronin. He was asked point blank. A reporter asked him. He said, "Hey, what's the difference between your team this year and last year? Because you guys are doing better." He says, "We have more money." I mean, I love that. And then you had Rick Pitino after beating St. John's, which I didn't even know this. I had, shout out to the Iron College Basketball Podcast. They pointed this out. A player, the best player from Seton Hall, transferred to St. John's. And so St. John's went to Seton Hall this past few days and beat them. And then Rick Pitino was like, "Hey, look, man, the kid, he's a great kid. If the money would have been equal, he would have been at St. John's, but the money wasn't equal. So he's here with us." And I'm like, bro, this is kind of awesome. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Like, where is this honesty in college? Do you know how much I was, if Lane would have just been like, "Hey, look, I mean, Mississippi State, they just didn't have the money. We had the money." And look, Lane does it more than anybody else.
I was going to say,
it would just be
kind of says it. He doesn't necessarily say as directly as you just described, but I've heard Lane basically say it. I think with college football coaches, it's
Lane was a bad example. I mean, okay, I'll take like Hugh Freeze, my guy. Like, dude, when people wanted to know how did you get this top 6 recruiting class out of nowhere,
God steered them there. I mean, of course, that's the answer. God wanted them there with the Reverend Freeze. I mean, there's the answer. I mean, my goodness, what else? What other possible answer could there be? They love East Alabama. I mean, Toomer's lemonade is delicious.
I think it would bring it would just be so refreshing if dude was like, "Hey, look, Oregon offered them, basically twice the amount that we had, and we got to save this money for a kid that we think was going to get in the transfer portal." I was like, okay, but it seems as if I don't know why it seems as if the two sports are operating in like two different worlds.
Yeah, I don't understand it either. I've asked coaches that before. I'm like, how come? I've asked football coaches, how come you guys are so much weirder than basketball coaches? And honestly, and they laugh. They don't really have an answer. I I think it is the spotlight is different. There's so much attention on a Saturday afternoon game, a Saturday night game. Everything is under the microscope and it's constant. And there's so many players. And I think sometimes it just kind of gets it almost feels corporate as opposed to, a basketball team gets off the bus and it's a coach and 4 or 5 assistants and some staff dudes and 12, 13 guys. And they all get off and they're all in their warm-ups and they walk into a locker room and they change real quick and they're out on the court warming up and it's a little more intimate. And so, you can see everybody's faces and you can hear the coaches and you can hear the shoes squeaking on the floor and you can hear the officials whistle. And, even when the crowd's packed, right, you still hear those sounds. You go to a football game, like 100,000 people at a football game, and you can't really see the players. You couldn't hear a word. If a player had a bullhorn running around, you wouldn't hear it. You don't really even hear the officials. You don't see things. It's a little more, I don't know what corporate's the right word. I'm not really sure what the right word. Formal, maybe. I don't know. Basketball's a little more informal. And so afterwards, the coaches, it's not as much media. And so it's like last night, I think I was the only, in fact, I think I know I was the only Ole Miss beat writer. Beard came in first. He left. And then Buzz came in, Buzz Williams, Texas A&M coach, who I like Buzz. I've been around Buzz a bunch in the course of my career as I'm becoming ancient now.
I'm going to let you finish, but I get why he fits Texas A&M because he's a little, I'm not saying he's odd as A&M, but compared to the other SEC coaches, he has a little oddness to him. But you can go ahead.
He does. He's kind of, that's a good word. Yeah, I mean, I've never thought of him as like weird, but he is kind of odd. He does some story time stuff that's like, okay, you sort of fit here. But he also is one of those guys, though, is my point, where, I mean, he could have walked into that room. It was me, one dude who was asking some weird questions, and then a young guy, it was a young student reporter, I think, who actually asked a couple pretty good questions, but it was just the three of us. And he could have so easily, it was 11:15 at night, he could have so easily blown us off. Easily. And a football coach probably would have, right? And he came in and, I asked him a couple of questions that had some depth to them, and I thought he gave me some pretty good answers. And I asked him about the decision not to call timeout off the missed free throw. Did you think about calling timeout? And I mean, he could have been like, oh no, we practiced that and that's what we do. And his answer was much more complex. It was like, well, there are some analytics involved. And at the end of the day, I mean, we could have called timeout, but I just kind of let him go and it worked. And basically he was like, you have to give them the credit because they made the play. I didn't do anything. I mean, he's like, we decided not to call. He's like, if it broke down, we had a timeout we could use because there was still time left because the kid made the shot with 16 seconds left. So, I mean, they had time to let that possession develop 3-4 more seconds. And then if it bogged down, he could call timeout. But he admitted that, hey, Beard is really, really good at inbound defense. And so if you make it a side out, game on the line, 10 seconds left, there's a decent chance. What he basically said was there's a decent chance he's going to out-coach me in those 10 seconds. And so, and for him to admit that, you don't get that from football coaches ever. Like never, ever, never, ever. And, and you get it from basketball people all the time. I mean, like Chris, I asked Chris, I was like, Chris Beard, I was like, you guys didn't have a field goal in the last 350-something, I think is how I said it. And Chris had kind of snapped at the first few questions. Like one guy asked a question about, how do you get your guys, can you get your guys back emotionally from this? And he kind of looked at him like, are you effing serious? Like, yeah, I mean, it's basketball, man. I mean, he said, if you coach or play long enough, you're going to be in games like this. And sometimes you're going to be on the bad side. You're going to be on the side that hurts, and sometimes you'll be on the side that's great. And he's like, and the point's well taken, right? I mean, if that 3-ball rims out, everything that happened wrong in the last 4 minutes still happened. It still happened. It's still bad, but you won, and everybody leaves the arena going, oh, this is great. Look at us. We're 5-1. Hell, we're going to win the national championship. And he goes back into the film room going, holy shit, those last 4 minutes, we got to fix that, right? Nothing changed from a coaching standpoint. All the emotion stuff, you don't have time for that. And he admitted that. And so I asked him.
Do you think that like Padula turning the ball over on that inbound spooked them from calling the timeout? Because I thought that once the first shot had missed and it was about before Jamin had put up the shot, I thought he was going to try to get a timeout because Ole Miss had one left. But it seemed like maybe that possession spooked him a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think what it was the exact same thing that Buzz was saying about not calling timeout. It was A&M is so good defensively with that press.
Yeah.
That if you call timeout right there, you got to go in the huddle. You've got to bring it the length of the floor, and they're going to be set defensively from a personnel standpoint. From a alignment standpoint, they still have fouls in their pocket. They can still send you to the line 1-and-1, right?
So, and that was the thing that shocked me. I mean, they swallowed the whistle. I mean,
yeah, they didn't call it. That was consistent all night. There was 13 free throws the whole game. Ole Miss took 4 free throws. Like I said this morning. Like if you told a coach before the game, any coach before the game, you're going to shoot 35-ish%. You're gonna commit 13 turnovers. You're gonna get out rebounded by 17, and you're gonna shoot 4 free throws. Man, I think they just forfeit. I think they go, oh God, I don't want to see that. Can I just go home? And for the fact that all of that happened and they had the lead until 16 seconds, incredible. I mean, it's just. Sports are cruel, man. I mean, it just
they are.
But those last 4 minutes, his answer to that was, basically their press messed us up, got us late into shot clock. We panicked a little, took some ill-advised shots, took some shots late in the clock where you don't really have time to look for a better shot. I mean, you have to sometimes. It was his point was sometimes you do have to acknowledge that it's 2 things true at once. We didn't do some things well that we got to fix, and they did some things really well. I mean, and the hard part was that up 8, 2 minutes to go, mathematically, a lot has to go wrong for you to lose, and it did. I mean, kind of everything. Yeah. Everything that kind of could go wrong, other than Matthew Morrell making a couple of free throws, everything that kind of could go wrong did, and you can't have You can't have turnovers in those possessions. You can't have a 10-second violation. You can't have a shot clock violation. You've got to get to the free throw line and make your free throws and put the game away. And they didn't do it. And I think what really bothered him last night, and he said it to his credit, right? He said it.
Mm-hmm.
I had a veteran team out there, a bunch of guys who've played a lot of basketball, and they've got to close games better. I mean, it wasn't like, hey, we did this, but I had 3 18-year-olds, a 19-year-old, and a 17-year-old out there, and they're just wide-eyed.
Yeah, he didn't Calipari that thing.
Yeah, no, there's no Calipariing the thing, right? Exactly, where you make every excuse under the sun. It's got to be better.
Yeah, I'm going to get your 3 takes on these things off the air. Just my one take from watching the game last night, in my opinion, I think Ole Miss should paint the baseline and the paint red or powder blue instead of navy. I also want to get your thoughts on, if I told you that Bruce Pearl, Nate Oates, nor Rick Barnes won SEC Basketball Coach of the Year, who do you think it is? And then I hang up and get your thoughts off there.
All right, tell me.
Appreciate you.
No, hold on. Take me through the first one again.
Do you agree with me that Ole Miss, instead of having a navy court and baseline, a navy paint and baseline, they should paint it red or powder blue?
Oh,
the paint on the basketball court.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, that was just my quick take from just watching the game last night. And then if the basketball guys told you that Bruce Pearl, Nate Oates, nor Rick Barnes won SEC Basketball Coach of the Year, who do you think it is? And I take that answer off the air. Appreciate you taking my call.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. So not Tennessee, not Auburn, not Alabama coaches winning SEC Coach of the Year. kind of be creepy for Todd Golden to win it this year with some of the stuff that's out there on him, although I think his team's good enough for him to win it. Probably Buzz. Probably Buzz Williams because A&M's tough and Taylor's going to play better than that most nights. That would tell me that they won. That would tell me they won a bunch of games. I think that's what I'd say. I think that's the route I'd go. Trying to think who else could possibly be. I mean, Dennis Gates at Missouri maybe means they had a great season. Chris Jans, Mississippi State, they had a great season. Maybe Mark Pope, they had a great season. Maybe Ole Miss gets to 12 and Chris wins it. But I think my answer would be Buzz Williams. Might be Beard. Austin says Beard. For it to be Beard, Ole Miss probably has to get to at least 11-7 for him to get SEC Coach of the Year. And that feels like a little bit of a tall order looking at their roster and the schedule that's left. And I mean, they could get there, don't get me wrong, but it would probably require them getting there. If you told me a team got to like 12, 13 wins, I think it's probably A&M because of how good they are defensively, and that might do it for Buzz. Yeah, and I don't think Kentucky's good. Like you said, Beard over Pope. I don't think Kentucky's good enough defensively to have the kind of season that they would have to have for him to win it. They can score, but they got guards who can't. They got guards who can't get in front of a moving train. Corey, welcome into the show. How are you, sir?
Is this Neal?
It is. Is this Corey?
This is Corey. What's up, y'all?
What's going on, my guys?
You said?
It's just me. Chase had some stuff come up, and he was going to try to get here, but it doesn't look like he is. He's going to make it. So your boy's flying solo.
I hear you. Well, I was halfway through the podcast from today. I saw you at the game last night, and special shout out to a guy that was with me named David Wright. He played football and baseball at Ole Miss back in the day. We were up 4 points with about 26 seconds to go, I think. And he said, "Oh, we got this." And I literally gave him hell from Oxford back to the dealership where he picked his truck up. Well, we got this. Yeah, no, we didn't have that. So
yeah,
that makes the.
It's funny. Everybody last night was like, there was this pervasive shock after the game, and I don't know whether it's because I've covered so many games and sometimes you see something kind of coming from a distance a little bit.
It was snowballing. It was snowballing.
When they got it up to 8 points with 2 minutes left, I thought that I remember thinking to myself, they're probably okay. And I was, full disclosure, my whole focus was on, I had a really good story written. I was going to insert a couple of quotes. It was going to be, not only was I going to get done quickly, but it was good. Like I write a lot of stuff that when I finish writing it, I look at it and go, that's crap. And it's too late to fix it. And I don't care enough to fix it. And every so often I'll write something and I'm like, oh, that's really good. I like the way that flows. And even though I know nobody's reading it that way, not anymore. Nobody reads journalism the way that I probably envision that they read it, but I was pleased with it. And when dude hits the 3, even if Ole Miss scores there, everything I'd written is scratched. When dude hits the 3, it's all gone. All I thought of, I went, oh, damn it. Right there. I was just thinking about it's all gone. I'm starting over. And whatever I write's not going to be anywhere near as good as what I had set up. And it wasn't. My story was average. But I had a really good one. It was ready to go. I mean, I was pleased.
Well, they let them play. I listened to Beard on the post game, and they let them play. But that was kind of the most. I've never seen that many. I mean, that's kind of like hyperbolic. I probably have, but it was a game of shot clock violations and jump balls and no foul calls.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've ever seen that many jump balls.
I thought the game. I thought they officiated it a little too loosely.
But it was fair, I thought.
Yeah, it was fair. I mean, neither team went to the line much at all. In the first half, there was one free throw. Two free throws. Texas A&M went to the line. One dude had a pair of free throws and he made one. That was it in the whole first half. Two free throws the whole first half. If you're, I'll be curious to see whether Ole Miss attacks more on Saturday, because I suspect Beard's going to look at that film and say, well, officials are human and they do anticipate. And when you take that many threes deep in the shot clock and you take so few drives to the basket, they start anticipating not blowing the whistle.
I don't remember the exact wording on the podcast this morning, but it was 30-second shot clock, 20 seconds you're into your stuff, and this 30-second shot clock, it felt like 10 seconds they were into their stuff. They were starting to run things at 10 seconds. It took that long to kind of get everybody where it's supposed to be.
Yeah, no, they had a hard time getting the ball up the floor. They had a hard time getting into their offensive sets, and you'd look up and there's 6 seconds left on the shot clock, and they were 5-6 seconds behind where they probably should have been, and they rushed because the clock's ticking at that point, right? You got to get a shot up, and A&M's ability in the half court to play 22, 23 intense seconds of basketball is one of the things that sets them apart. It's one of the reasons that they've had the success they've had in recent years.
Yeah, well, they're going to win a bunch of games. So are we. I mean, this wasn't
I think so too.
End of the year.
No, I mean, and I've used this line a few times. I'll use it again. I think early, especially when Ole Miss beat Alabama, people started doing this, oh, wow, what's the sky and what's the ceiling? And I was like, look, I mean, the ceiling's high, but this is not going to be a Disney Princess Cruise. I mean, this is there's going to be some choppy seas here. I mean, there's going to be some rough patches, and and there are for just about the only team that I think's immune to it from a rough patch standpoint is probably Auburn, and even Auburn's played 2 or 3 close games already. I mean, nobody's getting through this thing without getting nobody's getting through it unscathed.
Yeah. All right, my man. Well, I'll let you get back after it.
What's going on at Clark Ford these days?
Oh man, big time savings on 24s that we've still got. We've got a Bronco discount of $14,000. We've got a couple of Expeditions discount of $12,000 and $11,000. Working a deal from a gentleman from Hernando that he called today from listening to the podcast. So y'all give us a call. We'd love to earn your business, and we'll do what we need to do.
Hey, real quick before you go, Sammy wants to know your thoughts on the JFK files getting released.
I think it's going to be. I just left picking up some to-go food and had a beer too, so I'm having a hard time with the word. Were they black everything out? What's that called?
Oh, were they
redacted?
Redact, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of that. I can't see it being like a full kind of biopsy of what went down. I don't know. Somebody wrote something on a message board that I thought I hadn't thought of, and that maybe some of this stuff is why W hates Trump so much. Because you got to think about.
I'll give you a theory. I'll give you a theory I heard today that Trump didn't want to release it the first time because George H.W. Bush was still alive.
Yeah. I mean, I had never thought about that, but you think about what he did for a living before he was, vice president, and there you go. So who knows? It's going to be interesting. I'm not going to be the guy who digs into it. I'm going to wait and let someone else do that, and then read the cliff notes of it.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I am interested to hear some historians after they've had a chance to dig through whatever got released today.
right? And experts that can compare, contrast what they thought or they heard or they thought they knew or whatever versus what's in there.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, my man. Have a good night.
All right, my friend. See you. That was Corey Clark. Don't forget, if you are in the market for a vehicle, like you said, they got a lot of 2024s that they're trying to move. 662-257-1900 is that number. The Campbell Clinic hotline number, 662-259-8563. I can stay with you guys for a little while longer if you'd like. Ginger informs me there are no Disney Princess Cruises. I just think there should be. Disney Princess Cruises. That would make sense. I mean, think of how popular those would be with little girls. I mean, they drag their parents on a Disney Princess Cruise. But the point still stands. This 18 game schedule of SEC teams, as good as the league is this year, where there's no team that sucks. There are 2 or 3 teams that have the ability to be bad. South Carolina, LSU, Arkansas. Those teams on a given night can be bad teams. But those teams on a given night can scare the hell out of you or beat you. South Carolina took Auburn deep into a game. Arkansas just beat Georgia last night at home. They have at least one first-round draft pick on that team. LSU's really talented. The young freshman, who I can't think of his name, has some elite skills. I mean, Georgia's probably not one of the best teams in the league, and they have Asa Newell, who's a lottery pick. There's no terrible team in the league. And so every game's a potential loss. Even the games that you should win and that you probably will win, those games are losable. And so that's what I mean. I mean, it's going to be like Buzz Williams got asked last night about the NCAA tournament in March and stuff, and he started to give an answer, and then he just stopped and said, it's March feels a million miles away. I can't go there. And it was a genuine answer on his part. Sammy says, bet you Obama and Aniston would love to go on a Disney Princess Cruise. Sammy, I'm going to get in trouble. Ginger says they do a Marvel Day at the Sea. Tupelo says, am I more interested in the upcoming 4 years politically than any other president in my time? Yeah. Yeah. After the last 3 days, this is fascinating. Like, he can't run for re-election. He doesn't have to worry about running another campaign. I mean, I'm sure he has to worry. I'm sure the party hopes that he does consider the fact that somebody will have to run after him for 2028, but he doesn't have to sweat it. On a personal level, he can have a tour de force if he wants to have a tour de force. And unlike last time where the Russia stuff started like right away, he's kind of got some wind at his sails this time. I am absolutely interested to see what all he does or tries to do. If the first 3 days are any indication, he's got a pretty active agenda in his mind, and the guy apparently doesn't stop. That's the thing that strikes you about him, is whether you love him or hate him or anything else, but the guy's like endless energy. He just doesn't slow down at all. Let's see. Millhouse, I don't know if you got my message. If you're still with us, if you are, send me a message or something. I think Campbell would love those tickets. Grind says, tell me if these are worth it. Futures to win it all. Auburn plus 450. Yeah. I mean, Auburn could win it, win the whole thing. Duke at 425. I mean, Flag's good enough to do it. Ole Miss at 6,000. I just don't know that Ole Miss is good enough to win I hope I'm proven wrong, because that'd be great for business to have a NCAA tournament run that went all the way to Monday night. I don't know this team's diverse enough to do that. A&M plus 6,000. I don't think that's a tournament. I don't think that's a title team. I do like Illinois plus 3,000 grind. I don't hate that at all. The freshman, the foreign kid is elite and getting better like noticeably day by day. Bama plus 1,400. That's not a bad deal from a bargain standpoint. I don't think Kentucky could win it. They're not good enough defensively. They can't guard anybody. I don't love Tennessee at 1,700. I don't hate Florida at plus 2,000 if you're just throwing $10 on a team. I hadn't seen Iowa State enough to comment. I don't think UConn's good enough to do it. Rutgers has these two super talented kids. So at plus 30,000, I mean, if you have $5, why not? They're not going to win it. They're good enough to make some noise. Talented enough, I should say, to make some noise. Anyway, who do we have?
This is Kenny.
I'm sorry?
Kenny.
Hey, Kenny.
First of all, I want you to know I enjoy all of your content. No matter what the topic is, you do a really good job. You and Chase do.
That's
but I really do appreciate. I do really appreciate everything you do. Theoretical. This massive House bill that's supposed to pass and is supposed to cure all the ills of college football or college athletics by paying, in Ole Miss's case, $20 million to the players and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This is all hinging upon July 1st, a judge going along with everything and saying, okay, this is what it's going to be. If the judge doesn't do it, if the judge and there's some countersuits out there right now.
Yeah.
July 1st comes and goes, and the people at State U or Tech U or whoever who have promised Mr. All-American quarterback $4 million or $8 million to play football this year for State U. I'm not talking about Mississippi State. I'm talking about State U.
Yeah. Generic.
If they don't have it, the player, I can't see the player not wanting to play, wanting to just stiff them and say, no, you're not paying me, I'm not playing. Am I wrong in this, Neal? Because I think if that judge holds up for any reason, and July the 1st rolls, August 1st rolls, you got those kids showing up, and there's no check that's been promised based upon having, in Ole Miss's case, say $20 million. I'm just using that.
Yeah. That's basically
that money's not available.
Everybody's number, yeah.
Yeah, whatever that number is,
mm-hmm.
those kids, they're not going to play, Neal.
No, not only they're not going to play, they're probably going to sue. It's where you would love to see the paperwork. Like, I'd love to see and attorneys will absolutely want to see the contracts.
Absolutely.
Are the contracts verbal? Are they all written? Are they through collectives? Are they through the school? What are the terms on them? Is there language in the contracts that stipulate, hey, this is assuming that this settlement is approved and essentially becomes the law of the land? These are all questions that I'd love to know the answer to. I don't know, and it might vary from, as you said, from generic State U to generic Tech U and back. I don't know what happens in that world. And here's the thing: it's not even just a judge or a series of judges. It's what happens with future litigation. Because future, there's some 15-year-old out there right now who is going to sue because they didn't agree to this.
See that's my point on, you and Chase talk about, or you and other folks talk about, when you have a collective bargaining situation. Well, Johnny Football in Oklahoma, Mississippi, who's 15 years old, shows up and he's recruited by everybody and his brother. This collective bargaining group, he's not a part of that. He didn't agree to that.
Let me interrupt you for 1 second, Kenny. Wayback Reb in the chat says, and I think this person's right, says the NCAA will change the rules to make it allowable if the case doesn't settle. Basically says the toothpaste is already out of the tube. Now, I do believe that 1,000% that's true.
Okay.
So to finish the point, this is where I think it's too complicated to really almost discuss it with. You almost have to like just start pouring bourbon down your throat so you can just get over it. But,
It'll drive you crazy.
But it's one of these things where the schools like generic State U and generic Tech U, they are spending, the CFOs and ADs and the people that work at those schools have been spending the last several months and will be spending the next several months basically figuring out where to siphon that money from so that it's there, right? So to your point, Johnny Quarterback has agreed to $4 million. He's going to get the $4 million. They'll figure it out. They're going to come up with that money however they have to do it. That's why a lot of schools, like everybody's criticizing Mississippi State, and I'm like, I think it's stupid to criticize Mississippi State for this because they're doing, for their purposes, they're doing the right thing. I mean, don't put the money in the collective. Put the money into the school so that the school can use it for the settlement money, the $20 million. They got to come up with. Mm-hmm. You have to come up with the $20 million somewhere, right? Like that's like there's a lot of talk about the SEC adding a 9th football game. The SEC is only going to add a 9th football game if the TV people pony up. I don't know. I'm making up a number. I don't know. I would guess somewhere around $10 to $12 million a year per school.
I would agree with that.
If the TV people say we'll pay that, as much as the schools don't want to add a 9th game in lieu of what happened with the playoff, that would be half of their settlement money. So you'd be telling Keith Carter and the other ADs around the league, all right, well, I know you've had your people crunching numbers. Here's half. Well, that would help, right? I mean, that helps a lot. If I tell you, hey, you got to come up with $200,000 to buy something, and here's $100,000, you still have a problem, but the problem just got cut in half. And so I think, so you have stuff like that. But I still think the problem comes in down the road so the schools go, okay, so we figure this out. It's $20 million. We've got it. And then future players say, we didn't agree to that. I want more than that. And this is where I'm curious to see, do the schools, and I do think there's this attitude exists, and it's whether they have the backbone to sort of stand together collectively and go, no. Because all they can do is they can say no. You can tell Johnny Football when the next Johnny Football says, I want $7 million, you can say, screw off. And if everybody says you're not getting it, and he doesn't get it, well, then you calmed it down. But as long as you have outliers that are like, this means more to us than it probably should, we'll pay it.
Yeah.
The market just keeps doing this crazy thing.
And that's my contention is there's no shortage of egotistical oil billionaires in Texas.
Well, and it's not even that.
You know,
like, let's say
they'll pony up the money.
Let's say, I mean, if I tell the Athletic tomorrow, I think you should pay me $2.5 million a year to come write for you. That's me saying I think that's what I'm worth, right? Mm-hmm. If the Athletic goes, man, you're an idiot, and they hang up the phone. Well, I didn't get $2.5 million. But if the Athletic goes, oh, okay, you know, for whatever reason, we'll give you 2.5. Well, everybody else who does a job like mine with any degree of talent equivalent to mine is going to suddenly say, well, I want 2.5 also. I mean, that's what you see everywhere. And so suddenly that becomes the market if they can get it, as opposed to if people look at me and go, you're an idiot. No one's giving you that. And then I don't get that. And I settle for, I don't know, a tenth of that or whatever. That's my market. I'm worth what I can get.
But going back to the football, but then that still doesn't take the old school under the table money out of the way. It's still going to be there.
It is to a degree. It is, but it's been really minimized because I mean anybody like right in so back in the day. Everybody was super quiet with that because you didn't want to be the guy that brought your school down. And now you can give money to your school's collective and most everybody's going to pat you on the back and tell you how great it is, and that's awesome. Like, look at the last 2 games for Ole Miss, the last 2 basketball games. I'm not picking on anybody, by the way. It was probably really good business. Funky's gives $1 for every person that came to the was it LSU?
Yeah.
And then last night, Ben, the Craddock people, they gave $1.
Yeah, Blue Sky. Yeah.
Yeah, they gave $1 for every person that came to the Texas A&M game. I mean, no one's going, God, hey, Ben, be quiet, man. You don't need to be giving $10,000 to buy players. Now everybody's like, hey, that's awesome. I'm going to go. Yeah. I'm going to go get.
Yeah,
I'm going to go fill up my tank at Blue Sky.
Yeah, that's a good point. And if they give it through the university, they get a tax deduction.
Yeah, and so and not only the tax deduction, but it's not frowned upon. If you do it on a table and somebody catches you, well, now you're an idiot. I mean, on top of like getting in trouble and it being I mean, people would look at you and go, God, what a dumbass you are.
Well, I did not think about the NCAA just saying, well, okay, it's not going to work out that way. We're just going to make it legal. That would solve that problem.
Yeah, I mean,
if the judge doesn't do his thing, because my whole point was, I was sitting there thinking, is all this going to come around? All of a sudden, we're going to have an implosion, and half the football players are not going to be playing in college football this year. I was thinking that could be a mess.
I don't think it'll be a mess this year. I think it's got a chance to be a mess down the road. It's why, like, people do the thing about Tyler and I not fight. That's not the right word. We disagree on this. He thinks they're going to break away and form a union and become employees and have a collective bargaining agreement like they do in professional sports. I don't think anybody has the appetite for that. I think it's too complicated. I still think there's some Title IX issues that have to be resolved. And then if you have that, well, they signed a collective bargaining agreement that has terms, which mean time terms as well. Well, like Major League Baseball, at the end of the 2026 season, their collective bargaining agreement expires. And there's a widespread, prevalent belief in baseball circles that they are miles apart, they being the Major League Baseball Players Association and the owners, from any semblance of an agreement, which means that there will either be a walkout and or a strike, a work stoppage. And when you have a work stoppage, that means you don't have baseball. And I think if you did that at the college level, I think the level of fallout would be, I think people would lose their minds. I mean, I just can't even imagine, like, what would happen then? Would schools start recruiting football players off Fraternity Road as scabs to go play in Vaught Hemingway and Neyland and Tiger Stadium?
Well,
I don't know. What is that? It becomes a comedy.
Yeah, if you think back where the almost mass panic during the pandemic situation, are we going to have football or not? Everybody's going berserk about that. Well, this would be even worse.
Yeah, and that would completely unmask the final. There's not a whole lot of this left, right? But it would completely unmask any bastion of amateurism. It would no longer be, hey, I'm going to cheer for alma mater. I'm going to cheer for State U. I'm going to cheer for the school that my dad went to or my mom went to or whatever. That stuff would fly all. It'd be gone. I mean, like that. If you're the Atlanta Braves or the Boston Red Sox or whatever, I mean, you're not really. Fans will either come back or they won't. You have corporate stuff and all that, but you're not quite as dependent, in my opinion, at least, on the sentimentality of fandom the way that college athletics are.
Well, the college game is driven by emotion,
100%.
Because this is what I was raised going to Ole Miss football. I know nothing else, and so that would be interesting. Well, I just wanted to hear your take on that. I appreciate it, and again, enjoy your content, not just on sports, but with Josh Hendrickson and everybody else that you work with.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that very much.
All right, thanks so much. Bye.
All right, it's 6:35. I can hang for a little while if you guys want to call. I'll leave it up to you guys on calls. I've had a lot of good ones today, some first-time callers. It's been a lot of fun. Always good to hear from the usual callers like Grind as well. So it's been appreciate you guys bailing me out. I didn't know that I was flying solo until less than half an hour before the podcast, so I didn't have a whole lot of time to prepare things. So as always, appreciate you guys for making me sound and look like less of an idiot. Again, Ole Miss and Missouri at 5:00 on Saturday. They're in Columbia at Mizzou. I think we've gone through the whole schedule for Saturday. Tennessee and Auburn is the headliner Saturday night. That game is at Auburn at 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern on ESPN. Early games next week. Kentucky is at Tennessee on Tuesday. South Carolina at Georgia on Tuesday. Oklahoma at Texas A&M on Tuesday. And then the Wednesday slate is Auburn at LSU, Alabama at Mississippi State, Texas at Ole Miss. That's it is an 8:00 game on ESPN2 next Wednesday. Florida at Tennessee. That's because that we get into some of the open dates next week where teams get a little bit of a breather. So those are the I guess there's 12 games, so 4 teams getting a midweek break. South Carolina, I guess. No, South Carolina plays. I don't know. I've figured it out. I can't. I'm not good at that. But 4 teams not playing. But so the headline on Tuesday night is Kentucky at Tennessee, and then 3 really good games. Really 4 really good games on. Well, 3 really good games on Wednesday. Auburn at Mississippi State, Texas at Ole Miss, and Florida at Tennessee. So, 662-259-8563 if anybody wants to call. If not, we'll start to wind this one down. I will make this the Friday Blue Sky Live podcast in audio form, so we'll get that up to you as well. And we'll be back on Monday, I guess. We'll wrap it here. We'll be back on Monday with another full week of podcast on MPW Digital. I'll have coverage from, not from there, but I'll have coverage of Ole Miss at Missouri. We'll have 10 weekend thoughts. Next weekend is Ole Miss's first junior day, so we'll start ramping up some 2026 recruiting coverage. It's kind of hard to make too much out of offers right now and in-home visits. The coaches go out and see guys and make offers, and it's pretty early in the cycle. My personal philosophy is you sort of wait till guys show up on campus. That's more intentional as opposed to just getting an offer. If they can actually come to campus, they're interested enough to take a look, and then we'll start with that. Start looking at Ole Miss putting together the 2026 class. I'd be interested soon to talk to Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss with this current the current environment, the way the portal has changed a little bit in just 1 year. Is this going to lead to more emphasis on high school recruiting, or are they still going to be as portal reliant or portal advantageous as they've been the last couple of years is probably the better term. So I'm kind of curious to see that. We'll see all of those things sort of play out over the course of the next few weeks. And, of course, Ole Miss baseball not too terribly far away from getting started as well. And Chase will have coverage. All right. Hey, caller, you're the last one up here on the show. How are you?
Good. Hey, I was just wondering if you think the Eagles make the Super Bowl, can we talk about it being a dynasty like the Chiefs are on? Because this would be their 3rd NFC championship in 7 years. And, I mean, it kind of would. You'd have to start saying it's a dynasty. It's in the Chiefs mold.
Yeah, you got to win championships to be dynastic.
Okay, all right, well, then they win this one. That's 2 out of that. That's 2 and 1 Super Bowl. So
yeah, no, I mean, you'd start. Yeah, you'd start.
They're the best franchise in the NFC. If you win 3 NFC titles in 7 years,
yeah,
no one else is doing that.
No, it's true. Yeah, no, they've got to win. Probably have to win another Super Bowl to use that word. But yeah, sure. As the best overall franchise over the last 5 to 10 years in the NFC, if they won another title, yeah, sure.
Yeah, them or I guess I don't know the Saints when they were good with Breeze, but I don't know. I think we're going to win on that.
We don't remember the Saints as a dynasty, even though if you go back and look at it, they put up great numbers. And the reason you don't is because they didn't they didn't get to enough Super Bowls, and then they only won one. I mean, it's the Colts with Peyton Manning. They didn't win enough championships for you to remember them as dynastic, even though they were awfully good. I mean, so fairly or not, it really comes down to titles. I mean, the Buffalo.
Yeah,
Bills,
you got to win on Sunday to get that term.
I mean, the Bills went to 4 Super Bowls in a row. Had they just won one of those Super Bowls, we'd probably remember that team differently than the way they're the subject of almost a tragic 30 for 30 as opposed to what they really were, which was a dominant team that just didn't win on Super Bowl Sunday. They won 4.
It's hard to win a title.
Yeah, it's hard to win a championship.
Who do you think wins on Sunday, Bills or Chiefs?
I think the Bills win, but I mean, I'm probably the last person in the world that anybody should go to for that. It's more of just a gut feeling that it sort of feels like it's Buffalo's turn.
Yeah, I think so too. But Patrick Mahomes is tough. He's tough to beat.
Yeah, obviously.
He is that.
He's the best.
Yeah. Him and Hurts. It's those two in the NFL right now. They're just on another level.
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts. Yep, they're the best. No question.
Well, he had more passing yards than Allen on Sunday, but no one wants to talk about that.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I think it's simply not debatable that the two best quarterbacks in the league are Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts.
Well, he had more passing yards than your boy Allen on Sunday. I know that.
Yes, me and Josh.
In the snow and on MCL. So
me and Josh are tight. We're buddies. We're boys.
How about your boy Joe Burrow this year?
He had a great year.
Did he?
I mean, if we're just going to use numbers, yeah, he had a great year. I mean, it's not his fault that the defense.
Using numbers, he didn't make the playoffs.
Not his fault that the defense sucked.
Well,
who would you rather have?
If you have a great year, you make the playoffs.
Who would you rather have in Philadelphia? Jalen Hurts or Joe Burrow?
A guy that's gotten to a Super Bowl and outplayed Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl.
Okay.
A guy that's still playing. That's who I'd rather have.
Okay. No, that's perfectly. Hey, you're entitled to your opinion. I would think you're in a minority opinion there, but sure.
I mean, he beat him. He beat him this year, did he not?
I mean, it's a free country now. I guess Philadelphia beat Cincinnati, sure.
They beat him by 20. He's 2-0 versus them.
Yeah. Well, that settles it. I mean, that tells you everything.
I mean, those are the facts. The guy's just not good. He's overhyped. Absolutely. He had one good playoff.
Yeah. I mean, I think when you start ranking quarterbacks, it's Brady, Mahomes, Hurts. Yeah, I think most everybody agrees with that.
We just have to win Sunday to beat Josh Harris. That's what we have to do.
To beat who?
Josh Harris, the Washington owner who also owns the Sixers.
Oh, yes.
We just have to stick it to him.
Yeah, I think it's important to stick it to him. That's a big – nationally, there's a lot of people that really want to see it stuck to Josh Harris, for sure.
Well, definitely. The dude will get booed out of the stadium.
Yes, as he should. I mean –
he's a scumbag.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully that fan's brought back where he can yell at him the way that he yelled at that Packers fan. That'll show him. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that guy's a scumbag. We don't like that guy. That guy's bad karma. We don't like him.
Oh,
we don't
okay.
talk about him.
He went too far. Okay. Oh, I got it.
He went too far. You don't say that stuff.
Right. You don't use that word. It's a bad word.
You don't use that word at a woman. There's a line. There's a line, Neal. We know the line.
Yeah. There's a line. Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, you have a good night. Have fun watching us win.
Yeah. Okay. Good luck to you. Hope you have a great one. See, that's what happens when you stay just a little too long, everybody. There's a life lesson for you. My mom used to say, don't overstay your welcome. And that is what she meant. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you on Monday. Until then, take care.